Hello everyone, this is Mei Vu of Sexless and Consciousness Radio Show. Today we are presenting a new Google Hangout topic called sexless marriages. And it's such a big topic, I have a hard time saying that.
Yes.
And the reason for this topic is that I got a request actually from Japan. One of my radio fans says, you know, he loves listening to my shows, and I asked him, like, what topic should I cover? And he said, you know, sexless marriages is really hot in, well, it's not hot, but it's a hot topic in Japan. So he suggests that we should talk about that, because he'd love to hear some coverage, some sharings about that, because this is something that exists all over, and it's hard for us to talk about. It's, you know, it's not a fun subject. As you can see, this Google Hangout is not filled with people. It's not as hot and cool as female ejaculation. However, I think it's a very important topic for us to talk about and share our own experience with being in sexless marriages at some part of our lives, so that we normalize this topic, and we share the pain and maybe some inspirations with all couples around the world around this. So with me today is my new friend Jane Taff. I just met her at a sales training conference last weekend, and she's just so awesome. And I didn't know, but she does. She works with couples and relationship and around this. So Jane, you're gonna have to explain yourself better, because I don't really know what you do yet. But I just love that you're here and that you're jumping up and down, saying, "I'll come and talk about this. I love this subject." So share with us what you do, honey.
Well, I am a parenting success coach, and so I work with women, entrepreneurial women, who really struggle with the concept of work-life balance. Being an entrepreneur, it's a 24/7 thing, and we tend to work so hard that our personal lives suffer, our self-care suffers, and of course with that, you can be in a sexless period of time. But because I work with parents and how they influence their children, that really can have a negative impact on the relationship as a whole, not only the marriage, but also what the children see, because they observe so much more than what we say. No matter how much we say we love our spouses and things like that, they know when you're having the physical touch is gone, and you just start kind of doing that dance around each other,
or the ignorance.
Exactly, you know, and little tiffs come out of that whole sexless thing. You're just frustrated, right?
That's so great, Jen. I'm so glad you're here. Your voice will be so valuable in this conversation. I can't wait to dive in. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
And then here's my collaborator and partner in crime, Miss Susan Sabert.
Hi.
Tell them what you do, honey.
So it's interesting. I love Jane's lead-in, because I love to work with especially women on the other end of that spectrum, where, you know, maybe they've awakened to the fact that their relationship is pretty much dead. Maybe they're parents, maybe they're not, but they want to engage either and try to save their marriage, or decide that maybe the healthiest avenue is to leave the relationship. So working with women who are awakening to that place in their life where they're ready to turn on again.
Yay! Thank goodness for turn on again.
Yes.
And I'm May, and I work with divorced women and couples in crisis. So you know, the crisis part is usually one partner would want more sex and the other one doesn't, and the more the person who wants more sex asks for it, the more shut down the person who doesn't want it to shut down. Thus explain the sexless marriage situation. So anyway, and there's just so much pain in the situation when the couples are in crisis mode, and And then for divorced women who are, dating again, and, they probably came out of a sexless marriage and are awakening to a brand new, opportunities, a brand new partners, a brand new, some even have, like me, have never discovered her sexuality until she has a brand new lovers, and then it's like, oh my God, that's what it's all about. Did we not know that?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so let's dive into this topic. Like, what compels you to come together and share your personal stories about, at one time or another, you being in a sexless marriage? You want to start, Jane?
Sure. Actually, the sexless part was really part of my past because I was married to a man who was quite abusive,
Mm,
and both emotionally and physically.
mm,
And so for me, it was my only bargaining chip to hold out and use it as a weapon
mm,
because it felt like he had all the weapons. And because he wanted me to participate, it was the one I had control of. And
mm,
so, in that situation, there's a lot of emotional dynamic at play. There's a lot of negativity at play. And really, I think a lot of women feel that way in the beginning. They
mhm,
feel that that is their only bargaining chip. So
mm.
for me, in the period that I experienced a sexless marriage, it was really because I was choosing to hold out as my only
Weapon.
weapon in the game. Weapon in the game, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Got it. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Honestly, that's really like right to the point. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we do that, don't we? I mean, that's how it becomes sexless because
Yes.
we use it as a weapon to hold out, to withhold love and connection. How about
Right.
you, Sue?
Well, for me, I've been on both sides of the coin. I think that early in my marriage, early we had a great connection, and sex was never an issue. And then, like so many women, I got roped into the corporate world and the rat race, and I became less married to my husband and more married to my job.
Mm.
Um, and I was exhausted.
So you had
And
sex with your job.
I really, I thought that I did.
Oh.
That's where I gave all my attention.
Mm,
I worked, regularly 12 to 16-hour days.
mm.
So, by the time I'd come home, that would be sex was the last thing on my mind. I wanted
Yeah.
to eat and sleep for a few hours so I could get up and do it again.
Wow.
Um, and then later, for me, once I started to wake up into my own life and get reconnected with myself, then I started to really want more sex. And at that point, my husband he was kind of shut down. We
Mm,
had gone through some really rough times. He had affairs when I was turned off.
mm,
And so now I'm turning on and he's shut down.
mm.
And so we were really, really disconnected.
Yeah, so it's like it's not even passing, but it's kind of like out there.
Right. And we talked about it, really, really bluntly,
Yeah.
especially, the second time. And he just was in a place where he couldn't,
Get it up?
yep,
Oh,
or didn't,
interesting.
he was just stuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And for me, I went through a period of sexless, actually several periods of sexless in my previous marriage. First, because it wasn't good. it Sex wasn't good, so I didn't like it, and it hurts, and I was shy about it. I was very shut down. So it wasn't good because of me. It wasn't good because of him. It wasn't good because of us. Not for lack of trying. And I had so little experience. He was my only one that I've ever had sex with. My ex-husband was. So the poor guy, that's a big job to hold up. And I was very masculine. I wasn't in touch with my feminine. I was very work oriented. So there were so many layers of shutting down, you know, like I was rigid in my own ways of thinking, in my own body. I didn't have my own sense of my own sensuality and sexuality then. So it just kind of kept narrowing down like that, you know. And so, and then coupling with it's not that good and, you know, why bother? And so it just was a lot easier to just let it go. Let's just roll the other way and pretend we're tired, you know, or watch a late movie so that we can all get distracted about that and let's not do anything about sex. I think maybe the three of us, we cover the gamut of reasons why people end up in a sexless marriage. Anyway, so what's the next question? You know, like how did that impact your relationship? You guys answer that question. I have to go get another guest. He's stuck out there in limbo land.
Oh no.
Well,
it's like crap. Yeah.
No, I'll start. So you go get your guest. You know, I will say I was very aware when I was withholding sex, even though like a lot of times consciously I wasn't. I was just tired, but there were times where I was consciously doing it, and you know, I knew that I was upsetting my husband. You know, there would be times where he would, you know, try to have sex with me, and I would just like push him off or just lay there or do nothing. To one point, like one time where I just laid there and he had sex with me. And
it's almost a dead body.
Yeah, it really was.
Wait, I have to jump in. At one time, I actually said, "Are you done yet?" I feel like every year I should send him a "I'm sorry" or "thank you" or something. No, no. Like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know any better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Back to you, Sue. Sorry, I just had to go there.
That's great. But you know, so I, you know, by my actions, you know, I think it was a big catalyst for him to choose to have an affair. You know, not that there weren't other reasons, but you know, that was a big catalyst, and I had a big part in it. So obviously that, you know, that was a huge wedge in our relationship.
Yeah. How about you, Jane? What trick did you do?
Oh, I did all of those, and so you are not alone. I did dead fish, are you done yet? All of those things.
You have a name for it, the dead fish position.
Yeah, totally. Because those are all tricks we employ, right, to get through, to survive. Whatever situation is just completely not okay, we just need to get through it. Grin and bear it, or grit our teeth and get through it.
Yeah.
And so, but you know, the epidemic that's happening with a lot of my peer moms is they just plumb wear themselves out emotionally with their children. You know, sex is not only sex, it's touching, it's all those physical attributes, and that warm up, right? Sex begins in the kitchen. When you've been touched out by all of your children's needs and the hugs and all this other physical stuff you do, as well as if you're an entrepreneur, your business and that kind of thing, the last person you want to touch you in a sexual way or a physical way is your husband. Unfortunately, he gets the sloppy leftovers.
Oh, God, you are just filled with little one-liners that is just killers.
You know, because
leftovers.
Yes, and isn't it true though? The person we picked out of 1 billion people gets the least of us.
I know. Isn't that terrible? Again,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, honey. It's like, wherever you are, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was exhausted.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that you mentioned the piece about the family and how drained we are and how empty out and just like Sue said, you know, the the corporate demands and all that stuff, and then you come home and the husband doesn't want to warm it up. He just want to go to the pot and scoop out of something to eat, and there's nothing left in the pot. There's no one
Right.
filling the pot up, so there's nothing to give. It's fascinating. Stephen, welcome to Stephen. He is a regular. He's great, and you got your computer to work, and yay, it's not kicking you off. So Stephen, why are you here talking about sexless marriage? Since, you know, when have you ever had that happen to you?
Oh no, not me. Never.
Oh, okay, good.
There are there are quite a few. I talk to a lot of people, and I have the feeling that there are more sexless marriages than sexful marriages, at least between the husband and the wife. Now, what
Oh,
people
Stephen,
might
that is
do.
so sweet. Such a nice,
Now,
polite way
how
to
many?
say people are having affairs out there instead of having sex with their people.
Well, we said sexless, so how many are really sexless? And how many marriages are actually having sex anyway, due to perhaps things like ages and all? And I'm getting the feeling that there's a lot more people that are of the very loving ages of their life that have sexless marriages, whether they admit it to themselves or anybody else or not. So I think that, like you had said, the last thing on some people's minds, after all those things they have to do to keep the marriage, after they've finished reproducing in the first place, is there really anything left? So this is probably where it all starts.
Oh, good point. Nice way to bring in the whole how reproduction play in. Like a lot of people, me included, shoot, man, the minute I popped that kid out, I lost interest with sex with him. I know, it's kind of like, I didn't know. It was so unconscious, you know. It's like, I got what I wanted. I don't need to have sex with you anymore. Oh, it's terrible. I just sound like a terrible wife, don't I?
But that is, May, one of my favorite lines on the nightclub songs is in the middle of a song when the announcer hollers, "No sex before marriage," and then I always have to scream loud enough for everyone to hear, "None afterwards either."
You want to chime in on that one, Susan or Jane?
I'm actually just kind of floored that we're all having such similar or we've got experiences that really speak to this. It's not an unusual situation, and especially Jane, if you have the names for it, like dead fish. I love that.
You can use it.
Let's make a list, a running list today of what Jane throws at us. You know, there's the dead fish position. What else did she say?
Oh gosh.
Susan, you're taking notes, right? So that we can put it on the thing.
And I think that what's so great about having this opportunity to use Google Hangout and chat about this and talk about it in a really open forum is hopefully it lets other women and men who might be in situations like we've described, let them know that it's not unusual, that it's maybe it's not what they want, but it's not that they're alone either. Mm-hmm. I know, like for me, when I was going through it, I thought I was an alien. Like I was the only person in the world that must be feeling like this, and that there was something wrong with me. Like what is
so much shame, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so much shame and embarrassment because it's not cool. You don't sit at a bar and brag about how sexless you have been. You brag about how many people you bang and how many times you come. You don't brag about, wow, let me tell you, it's been 6 months since we've done anything.
Exactly.
I actually hear that. I actually hear that in the general public. It's been a long time. It's been months. My husband and I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I want to go back to that one place where I accidentally touch on, which is the whole thing about sex not being good. And so we're turned off by that. Jane, have you heard anything from like your friends talking about that? And you know how the lack of
Technique, honey.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for another line from you.
We don't like what's on the menu.
Yeah, well, the thing about that is we're all learning, right? With every new partner, you learn. If you have multiple partners or you have a succession of partners, you're all on different learning curves, different grading systems.
Yeah,
It's a learning
grading system.
process.
See,
Grading
there's significant
systems.
grading
Yes.
system of your
Yeah,
performance.
definitely. So I think you have to be committed to being each other's student and learning about those likes and dislikes and touching and playing without the sex part for a while, or in combination with, we women need it to start in the kitchen. Do me a favor or two so I can be warmed up to when you actually touch me.
Yeah.
And I think both males and females forget that part, that we have a warming up period, and we need that exploration is so important too, so that we really do know how to please each other. And even if our technique in our heads aren't good, we can at least discover it and get some confirmation when it is, leaving that communication open. And I think truly it's just like I tell my husband when we teach our children about sex and hearing about sex talks, it's all lies and exaggerations. Everyone's doing it. It's kind of like for our peer group, everyone's doing it. No, they aren't. It's the same for teens. No, they aren't.
No,
And
definitely true.
in that, yes, we perpetuate those lies that everybody's doing it. Really, they're not. And it's not always good, and that's the truth. So,
But on TV, it looks like it should be good, and
Everybody's doing it on
and
TV.
everyone's body doing it, and they're doing it so good, and I'm left behind, and I'm the dork in the group, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Our culture our culture totally sabotages us that way, and that's why for me the first thing I tell people is, what are you watching and filling your head with? What fantasy are you filling your head with that is sabotaging your reality?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember this one time, speaking of fantasy, this is a little off topic, but I just get, but I was working with this woman who was divorced, and she was talking about how she wanted to blend her family with his family together. And as we're working, we realized that, oh my gosh, you had a Brady Bunch family, fantasy. Like here's a story of a lovely lady, and with 3 kids, and he has 3 kids, and they all just blend so well together. And and all these things come out, and it takes time, and it's so painful, and all that stuff, and the balancing, and the walking on eggshells, and everything was just so trickery for her that she didn't realize that. And when we put our finger on that fantasy, it was just like the whole world opened up, and then she just had more compassion to just be with what is, instead of this expectation that she didn't even know she had, that she would be a failure, her relationship would be a failure if she didn't have that Brady Bunch result. Who does?
Right. They had Alice.
Yes,
And a whole
you're darn
entire
right.
camera crew and writers to make
That's
sure
right.
everybody
If I
talked to
have
each
an
other
Alice,
properly.
I'd be having good sex all the time.
Okay,
And-
secret number 1 to having sex in your relationship: you need an Alice.
You need an
And that's
assistant.
not a bird. you need a housekeeper if you want
You need a
more
maid.
sex in your relationship. That's right. That's too much fun. I want to keep talking. I want to find that email that Gregory Joseph, he was going to join us today, but there's big storms in the East Coast, and apparently they can't get on the internet. What the heck is that? Come on, that's a lame excuse. Anyway, but he wrote such a tender email to us about, Susan, can you flip to that? Can you get that? About how his marriage evolve or devolve into that state. And it was so nice to hear from the male's perspective this touching, you know, reflection of that, and how it continued to impact the rest of his relationship afterward. So fascinating. You got it?
Yeah, and I haven't gotten it yet. I'm looking for it. I will find it.
It's in our event, for this event. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
What I was going to say was, one of the things that really touched me when I read it was the way that he really described his wife's unhappiness with her body, and how that, even though he didn't say anything about it himself, but how that totally impacted their sexual relationship. She just was so unhappy that she couldn't go there. And I think that is absolutely a huge issue for not just women, both genders.
Yeah. So here it is. I found it. It said, let me, hang on. I'm got to manage the camera and manage this thing. So the late mother of my children was not a sexual woman. However, after all of our fun courtship, when we became married, sex almost stopped completely, just enough to produce 2 children. I don't know how getting married relates to sex before marriage, and very little afterwards. I was too inexperienced in honest communication about taboo subjects to explore the reasons behind her sudden change of being. I love that. Honest. I was too inexperienced to have honest communication about this taboo subject, and this sudden change in the way you're being. While my emotions raged and my desire for her grew, I was trained as a man not to act out my emotions. Wow. That just touched me so deeply. And then he said, I would say that the longer something goes unmentioned, the harder it seems to be able to bring it up. Whenever I brought up the subject, I was met with emotional outbursts that made my macho man image pale in contrast. And time passed while tolerating the situation, wondering if this was normal. It's what Susan was talking about. Is this normal? Am I normal? I'm so out there, right? More and more time passed between each communication attempt. It was like sex became dirty or something. I actually got that she was ashamed of her bodily functions. Not just her body, but her bodily functions, instead of enjoying them. The anger and frustration surrounding her feelings was unimaginable to me. And that's the other thing, right? We can't understand how the other person could feel that way. So we get angrier and angrier. So he said anger and frustration, I think, became her weapon that kept me from being persistent with her. Was that just touching or what?
He's actually taking part of the responsibility. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I when he wrote that, I just stopped and just had to feel that message, and just, it's almost like he spoke for a lot of men out there.
Right. And there's a lot of components to his message that I think are really important. And as you were reading, May, I think you really hit on a lot of them. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of meat in there to explore and pull apart.
Yeah. And how, the whole strategies, like Jane, you started us with that whole thing about I withheld sex. And I'm sure you and us, use force in our emotions and our words to really shut them down and shove them away, kind of thing, right? And like what Greg said, like the anger and I don't know, it just felt really brutal. I can just imagine the energy in that house,
Absolutely.
Like if I was his 2 kids, I probably couldn't breathe in that house, right? And again, that's what you talk about, Jane, about how, you know, kids feel what we do and the energy between the adults, and when it stinks like dead fish, you
They know this.
you know, you just can't help it. To see it.
Yeah, you know, in a family when that dynamic is happening, I so resonated with his voice, the pain that he's expressing of her hating herself so much that the rage was pointed at him.
Yeah.
And she couldn't express how she felt about herself, so she lashed out at him. And he was so unskilled in communication that he couldn't soften the blow and draw out what is it that she's feeling, not necessarily taking it personally, but teasing out, what are you feeling, honey?
Right.
You know, where's this coming from? How can we work together on this, as opposed to be against
me.
each other?
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so hard not to take it personally, right? Because
Yes.
we hear these things as rejections and not good enough, right?
Especially when it's men.
Me, or I'm not good enough. What was that you said, Stephen?
Especially when it's men that have the rage directed at them.
Yeah.
Men are the last ones to be able to handle it. Would be taken personally, no matter how evolved the man is.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that's going to happen. Yes.
Right. And Jane, you're highlighting that place of like, you know, we don't have the skills, right? And who really does? Who really have good communication skill in the bedroom, in the kitchen, in the family? We're kind of like poor on communication.
Yeah, you
I
know,
would
with
give
all
us a
the
C minus.
information.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, with all the information available today, skill, usage, and wisdom is at an all-time low.
Yeah, well, excuse me,
Definitely.
but you know, like I would love to take a toll of like a poll of how many people out there in the world actually take a personal growth class to learn how to communicate with their wife, with their kids. Now, unless they're right on the verge of divorce, then they start taking these classes, and then that's kind of late, you know. But
Yeah.
Right.
anyway, like there's some bravado, some protection that we go on. Well, I should know how to communicate, so why I don't need to spend money on that. You know, it's just crazy what we think is important.
Well, and I will say, like, you know, after doing a lot of self-development and work that I have, so I've got a lot of these tools in my belt, and it's still challenging. I mean, it's, you know, every dynamic is different, and God, I still take things personally all the time.
Of course, you're human.
Damn it! But yeah, it is one of those things. Like I tell myself it's a lifelong learning experience, and I just have to keep trying and putting myself out there and being honest.
Yeah,
And vulnerable.
Yeah.
and be really good at apologizing. You know, I think that is the thing that will save our butt. You know, just apologize. Swallow your pride, put it aside, because your pride is not going to get you the marriage that you want. It is not.
Right.
It's not going to get you the love. It's not going to get you the touching. It's not going to get you the gift, the presents. It's not going to get you anything. Your pride. It's just going to get you a lot of anger, a lot of loneliness, and a lot of sadness deep inside. Yeah. So don't...
I was just thinking about one of the the points that Ben Rohde made in our last Google Hangout when it was asking for what you want and maybe not getting it. He said, you know, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy?
Yeah, exactly.
Or do I want to still be married?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be really simple if we let it be, but we're so good at making it hard.
And just for the record, I am not attached to us staying in marriage or sustaining that. I mean, I think that would be great, but I'm much more attached to you being in a relationship that have you be thriving and getting the love that you want. So whatever it takes, babies, get yourself there. You know, if you're not having sex, you need to be having sex. I don't care how you get to that. You need to be having sex, because that is not an option. Because I know, I used to think sex is optional. I didn't think I
I
needed.
I recall Dan Savage mentioning, well, when people get married, many of them expect it to be exclusive and for life. So he added, although I don't think he said to make it a marriage vow, but maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea, just to remember that when you take on somebody for the rest of your life, you are responsible for their sexuality for the rest of their life, exclusively, perhaps. Just kind of a thought that
Hmm.
somebody may want to consider in the first place, even though
I'm
there
having a
will be
real big
pressures
issues with
against
that
it.
statement. I think it's out of context. I don't know what Dan said, but just that simple statement about when you're married, you're responsible for their sexuality for life. Just those words
I
alone is
believe,
not okay with me. I'm just like
of course,
jumping out of my skin.
of course, we have the thing about monogamy, yes, and I only meant um, if somebody is committing in that way to somebody, which may not be a very human commitment. I am on record knowing and saying that I don't believe humans are monogamous. When somebody takes on the marriage, there is
Well,
quite a deal of responsibility towards the other person's sexuality.
I, I think we are. Let's pull that one apart because I think it's a very important point here. I do think we have an impact on the other person's sexuality. I do think we have a role in supporting the other person to grow sexually as much as we can. And if we can't, I think we have the responsibility to get out of the way so that your partner can grow because to me that's unconditional love. However, my sex is my responsibility. It's not yours. Like I handed over to my husband, to my ex-husband, and I said, pretty much in my mind, it's your job. It's your job to make me feel good. It's your job to make me come. It's your job to please me. It's your job. And that's where I end up, out here, not married to him anymore. So I think
And that's why we call this sexless marriages rather than sexless relationships.
yeah, so I think it's important that we look at what's my responsibility to my sexuality. You guys, Jane and Susan, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I agree. Your sexuality and your sexual experience is your responsibility because if we make ourselves responsible or someone else responsible, we can't control them. We can only control our response, our initiation, our own bodies in participating or not participating, as we talked about earlier. And so to say that it is someone else's responsibility really, I think, really sabotages the whole process because we as human beings thrive most when we are contributing to the best of our own personal ability. And that's why personal growth and development is so important. It's really taken off because we know as we work on ourselves, all the other facets of our lives thrive.
It opens up, right? We open up to more access to ourselves.
Right.
Sue, you want to jump in?
I would say that I'm in agreement with the overall thought about it. That I'm responsible for my own health and happiness and
Sex.
sex in the relationship. And I'm creating this relationship with somebody else, and if it, I would hope that, and we would make a commitment to each other to hold that in high importance and work together to make sure that it's healthy and happy for each other. I may not be responsible for his sex and his happiness, and I have a part in what is being happening in the relationship.
Yeah, I think
So
we have a huge part, right?
Yay, participation.
In impacting each other and supporting or suppressing. And I think a lot of times we suppress our partners much more than we realize, and we're so busy being right about it. I think we are doing some disservice, especially to our men. I have to speak to my sisters out there. It's like I think we have some bad behavior, bad habit, bad assumption, bad controlling mechanism that we do like Jane said, we control sex, you know, and I think it's time we step up to the plate and learn about our own sexuality and be a leader, be an author, be a full participant, you know, around this, rather than sit back and blame our husband or our partners and you know, all the things that we do. It's just,
Yeah.
I've been there, done that, and I'm so sorry.
Well, you know, and this is, I think, a really important point, and, you know, maybe I can just give a little shout out to a future Google Hangout that we're doing on building your sexual practice.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, because I think that this, you know, just like your fitness, your health, your nutrition, you know, we pay so much attention to those things, you know, for our own health or maybe our partner's health, our kids' health, but your sexual health, there's no mention of it. There's no sexual practice.
Right.
And, you know, it's time that it does get its rightful place, because aside from just, you know, being connected, engaged, and enjoying sex, I mean, there really are important health aspects and benefits to it. So
I love it. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That was a brilliant shout out, because yes, we are going to have a Google Hangout. Well, first of all, we're doing a Google Hangout on sex, any angle of sex, every 2 weeks on Thursday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, just like right now. And so the next one will be 2 weeks from now. So today is, what is it today? June 13th, sorry. so the next one is at the end of June. And I forget when, the next one was going to be on orgasmic meditation, is that right?
Well, that's in July. I think the next one is the unspoken attraction.
Oh, yeah.
Between woman and woman.
Oh,
yeah. You're not all the way over the other side of the other line yet, but you're on this side, and you're kind of like,
well, you know, we dress for each other as it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I say that a lot.
Jane, well, you'll have to come back in 2 weeks, Jane. I think I'm starting to feel something for you, Jane.
Yeah.
It's natural and normal.
Right, so the next Google Hangout will be on female to female attraction, the seldom talk about topic. And then the one after that will be on orgasmic meditation. And then after that, it will be on developing your own sexual practice, because this is something that both you and I take a big, strong stance over. You know, we have a spiritual practice, we do yoga, we have sport practice, we have even eating plans or whatever, but we don't get to have a sexual practice. We think that our relationship should handle that, and it doesn't. And it's a broken model. We need to break it completely and create a new model so that we can really own our sexuality. So awesome weaving that in. All right, so what else should we talk about? We have about 10 minutes, and we don't have to take up the whole time, but is there anything else around this that you wanted to chime in about?
Well, I was actually thinking about this whole topic, you know, and the way that, you know, I recognize for myself, I immediately go to the negative. Sexless marriage equals bad.
Yes, thank you. Right.
Yes.
And yet I wonder, you know, Stephen, I think that you may have mentioned, you know, depending on somebody's age or health, or maybe it doesn't even matter, but they may consciously choose to be, you know, in a marriage that doesn't have sex.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily
I believe it happens. And I believe it actually works for many people.
Yeah, I think the thing is the consciousness around it. It's choice. And that's where you stand up, you know, that's what I think we were just talking about, where, you know, we're not consciously taking responsibility, you know.
Yes, and few people would want to say that they consciously chose that any more than many would want to say that it happens at all. And I'm sure that there are many who consciously choose it, and I have talked to people who have said that when they stopped sex, perhaps sex too often was the male-driven force with them, and that when they stopped, they began to cuddle and hold each other and spend more time together and holding hands and all the things that may well have been missing when they were having hard driving sex. So to me, it sounds as if some people have had an okay time with that, thrived with it perhaps, and actually knew what they were doing.
Jane, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I am of the persuasion, and like I said at the beginning of the show, I had a relationship that was physically and emotionally abusive, and so I utilize sex as a tool, or lack thereof, as a tool. Now, I firmly believe that all marriages should have a thriving sexual component. But to me, sex is not just the physical coming together, literally, but all the other things. It's a whole gamut of activities that you do. It's that touching, holding hands. A lot of the physical, emotional aspects all lead up to the actual coming together. It's not an isolated act. It's kind of a domino of acts that lead up to a good sexual experience. And so I tend to more err on the side of, I don't care how old you are, if you are physically able, and that is a big if you are physically able, you should have a thriving, loving sexual relationship. Not just sex, but sexual relationship. And that can take so many forms.
That's really nice. Thank you so much, Sue, for bringing that up. I had thought about it briefly, and then I didn't quite know how to hold it in the conversation, but that's so important. I do actually have a couple that I know, dear friends of mine, and they're much older now, and they have been, I didn't know this actually, but I've known them for years, and then finally one day, she told me, she's like, yeah, we don't have sex. We don't have that. We've been asexual for a long time. And I didn't know what that is. I still don't know that fully, so I want to own that. It's just kind of like, I still hold that in my head. Is there something not quite right there or something? So what I get from this is it's as long as both sides are truly okay with that, truly happy with that. That is what works for them, and that they are actually feeling the freedom and the growth and the support in the relationship without that physical act of coming together. And it's good with both sides, then it's all good, right? It's just that if one side is suppressed and the other one is pushing for more, then there's that tension in the energy of that, and then it can be really toxic.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's exactly, that's a good way to really summarize that. If there is agreement, that's important. If there's communication and agreement, how many times do we start down a path and we have no agreement from our partner? Come
on. Isn't that agreement? You just stand there with your white dress and say, I do. Isn't that enough agreement? Are we done? Why do we have to talk about it? Right? Isn't that what they say? Why do we have to talk about it? You
Especially
always have to talk about it.
In front of people.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a woman. That's a woman weapon. Talking about it in front of people.
In front of people.
Because that's to embarrass you out of whatever you wanted.
Yes.
But that isn't just for sex.
We all
that goes
know that one well.
Else. Yes, everything else as well.
I love it. Yeah. All right, let's. Jane, will you just start us? Tell them how they can get a hold of you if somebody watched this and wanted to email Jane or connect with you.
Thank you. Definitely give me a call anytime, 916-517-0342.
I feel like we should write that number on the bathroom wall or something. Say that again. 916 what?
916-517-0342, or send me an email, Jane, Jane, _Taft, TAFF, @yahoo.com.
That's easy. Thank you, honey. Yeah. And sure. Stephen, how do they find you?
Well, that would be at thebaronstephen@gmail.com. gmail.com. That
Another
would be the
easy
best
one.
start.
Great. So the Baron, Baron, just in case you guys don't know what he just said. All
Yes.
right. And Miss Susan?
Well, I
Suzanne?
made it easy for everybody. I think I put it in my my lower third bar. So you can reach me on Facebook. So it's Facebook/Susan Seibert Coaching. Email is sseibert@gmail.com.
Yep. And Cybert is
Yay.
spelled the way she has it right there. Right. And if
Mm-hmm.
you want to get a hold of me, you can also get me on Facebook. It's May Vu Coach. And you can email me at may@mayvucoach.com or check out my radio show, Sex, Lies, and Consciousness radio show on Blog Talk Radio or that website, Sex, Lies, and Consciousness. There's so many ways to get a hold of me. Oh my gosh, you know, or you could just make a note on the YouTube channel right here, you know, comment and you'll get directly to me. Okay, well, this has been fun. I didn't think that sexless marriage was going to be a fun topic to cover today, but we've succeeded in making it a fun and enrolling topic for people to watch and get something out of it. So I really appreciate all of your participation. I look forward to the next conversation, female to female attraction. Hello. Next, in 2 weeks on Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific. Enjoy your 2 weeks, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.